All right, good evening, everybody. Today is August 13th, 1 o'clock. Roll call for the Budget Committee. I'm here. Councilmember Moreno is here. Councilmember Green is here. What I'm going to do is I'd like to get a couple more members here, so we're going to vote on some things that really shouldn't take much time, but want to make sure that we get through. So with that, I'll accept a motion for the minutes of the July 1, 2025 Budget Committee meeting. Moved by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. 3 yeas, no nays. That's item number 3 on the agenda. Let's move over to item number 8, which is amendment number 5, a professional service agreement between the City of New Orleans and Cher Garner. Is there anybody here to discuss that? Well, actually, let's do, before we get to that one, let's do the resolution R25437, which is item 3. Members, not to steal anybody's thunder, but this is the first part of the bond issuance approval after we've already approved the $90 million in revenue bonds for judgments. This would be the first set of bonds at $45 million to settle up those matters. Did I say anything incorrectly there, Mr. Akers? All right. I'll move for approval of that. Seconded by Councilmember Green. 3 yeas, no nays. And unless I say otherwise, Ms. Spears, can we just put everything on consent agenda for council meeting? Okay. All right. Item number 8, is anybody here on the contracts? Okay, so can I get to C then? Amendment 1, a professional. I'll skip A and B. Anybody speak to Civic Source? Yes. Go ahead, Frida. Or Romy, whoever wants to. Or whoever. Great. All right. You just want to knock out the stuff that'll probably take less time.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Courtney Wilson Renthrow, and I am discussing the contract that the city has with Archon, also doing business as Civic Source. Civic Source is our third-party contractor that we work with in the performance of the tax sales, as well as the sale of adjudicated properties, also known as SOAP. This amendment is basically to extend the term for an additional year while we reprocure services and continue with the current services that we have.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. I move for approval. Second by Councilmember Green. 3 yeas, no nays. Can anybody speak to 8D about City of New Orleans and No AIDS Task Force Crescent Care? All right. Take your time.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Dana Rie. I'm here to speak about the contract with Crescent Care and the Health Department. Basically, Crescent Care will oversee the harm reduction and care navigation mobile unit that will operate after closed or traditional hours. So after the hours between 9 and 5, they will have a physician on site mobile for at least 50% of the time. And Crescent Care will source out with other organizations like Volunteers of America, ViaLink, and Tricerio for additional services.
Okay, thank you very much. Moved by Councilmember Moreno, seconded by Councilmember Green. 3 yeas, no nays. Item 8E, professional service agreement between City of New Orleans and Thompson Consulting Group for emergency debris removal. Is there anybody here? Mr. Torrey.
Hey, and good afternoon. This is the new debris monitoring contract, standby contract for emergency response in the event of a hurricane. The city has 3 debris removal contracts for each of our zones. The debris monitor oversees the debris removal efforts and ensures FEMA compliance and reimbursement. So this is the new contract to take effect for this hurricane season.
Councilmember Green.
Mr. Torrey, could you confirm for the public that is watching that this contract is a contract for emergency debris removal in the case of a declared emergency. It's
Correct.
not for day-to-day cleanup of this unfortunate illegal dumping that we have throughout the city. That's not considered a technical emergency.
Absolutely. This is actually the monitoring contract that oversees the
Right, I'm
debris
sorry, the
removal
mon-
contracts.
right.
But you are correct. All 4 contracts are standby contracts that would only be activated in the event of an emergency.
Right, okay.
All right. I'll move for approval. Second by Councilmember Green. 3 yeas, no nays. Thank you, Mr. Torrey. At the administration's request, we'll defer item number 9 on to item number 10, ordinance calendar numbers 35182 and 83, $918,000 in expenditures for residential home elevations in Orleans Parish, and this is grant funding, as I understand it. So I'll move for approval of item 10, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. One more. 3 yeas, no nays. Item number 11, this is a whopping expenditure members of $7,958. Ordinance calendars 34184 and 185. A move by Councilmember Moreno, second by Councilmember Green, involving NOPD and the crime lab. 3 yeas, no nays. The next one is item number 12, ordinance calendar numbers 35186 and 187. This is to appropriate more funds for the council to cover the Wisner litigation. I'll move for approval. Can I just get there we go. 3 yeas, no nays. Item number 13 is to transfer money from intergovernmental revenue to Louisiana Department of Administration and CAO Personal Services to cover severe storms and tornadoes back in December of 2022, moved by Councilmember Moreno, second. 3 yeas, no nays. Item number 14, ordinance calendar numbers 35194 and 195, private grant funds to the Health Department for National Collaborative Gun Violence, moved by Councilmember Moreno. I've seconded. 3 yeas, no nays. Item number 15, ordinance calendar numbers 35196, 197. Here you go, Councilmember Green. Appropriate funds, Department of Code Enforcement to support lot and graffiti abatement priorities in Orleans Parish.
A top priority of mine, and especially certain communities.
If only it said jobs too, we would have covered everything. You want to move on that one?
Absolutely.
I thought you would. Moved by Councilmember Green, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. All right.
Gives me a chance to say I appreciate the work of code enforcement. It's making a big difference, especially in a couple of communities that I've targeted. I think that we're, in my district, near 200 blighted properties demolished since the commencement of my term, and our communities are appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you, ma'am.
Members, because Mr. Gregorian is here now on the 2 Share Garner contracts, let's go back to those to knock that out. You want to come up here, and what we can just do, if you don't mind talking about A and B together, and we'll just vote on them separately. Thank you.
No problem. These are both just existing contracts for litigation that's been ongoing since for a number of years at this point. This is just an extension and to allow them to continue any work that they need to do.
What, one of them, I think it's the traffic camera litigation. What's the other one?
The other one was the DDD one, I believe.
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
OPSB, sorry.
OPSB. Okay.
Yeah, I apologize.
All right. I'll move to approve 8A. Second by Councilmember Green. 3 yeas, no nays. I'll move on item 8B if the machine can catch up. Need a second. Second by Councilmember Green. 3 yeas, no nays. Mr.
Thank you.
Gregorian, not directed to you, but we stopped fighting. You wouldn't have to spend money on lawyers. All right, number 16, and we'll address it when we get to the other item. 35, 198, 199. This is approve of grant funds to NOPD for their needs. It's $33,160. Again, it's approval of grant funding. I'll move for approval. Second by Councilmember Green. 3 yeas, no nays. Item number 17. This is, number 17, members, is the first step of settlement with LSU in the Wisner litigation. It's to appropriate the settlement amount that we would have under capital bonds and appropriate for LSU for their downtown facilities. This obviously mirrors what we did already with Tulane, with the exception being the dollar amount. Councilmember Morrell, do you want to vote on this one? Sure. This is about the settlement with LSU, first step with appropriating the money.
Mr. Chair, may I ask, is this the
Absolutely.
final determination of the amount? Or-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and then the settlement agreement should be forthcoming, and then we'll have the vote at the council meeting. For now, pending a report from the administration, I'm going to skip items 18A through L, but we'll go to M, which is Sewage and Water Board, new utility program, relations liaison. Again, given the fact that the administration has asked us to defer voting on any of these positions pending their internal study of jobs, we are going to delay A through L, but I will move on 18M. We did. Yeah. 4-0. All right.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question about
Yes.
A through L. What is our time frame? What is the administration's time frame relative to the completion of this study as it affects certain agencies that have needs at this time?
I think it's a great question. I defer to the administration if they want to answer now or when they give their presentation. So why don't we just wait till the presentation?
that's fine.
And if they have new information, Mr. Green, I'm more than happy to take it up then.
Yeah.
Hey, Councilmember Morrell, can I just get your vote on this so I can get 3? I got you. Yep, thank you, sir.
Right back.
Thank you. All right, so with that, we're through the voting items for now. We will move to the revenue discussions. And you see we have items A through F enumerated and then some collateral matters to that. So let's get started with 4. And I'll let Councilmember Morrell start with item number A. And look, let me set sort of the framework for why we're here today. 2 things. Number 1, if you look at the revenue estimating conference, there is a hole somewhere between $27 and $30 million in projected revenue. And then the forecasted expenditures are somewhere between $60 to $70 million. So my simple math on that is around $100 million potential hole. I want to emphasize the word potential because that's not final, and we're trying to do other things to address that. So with that said, beginning months ago, the council asked for revenue discussions about matters that are either pending right now or matters that can lead to additional revenue for the city. We'll hear that mostly in item number F, but I think all of these items relate to the underlying fisc of the city and are therefore ripe for discussion about ways that we can potentially either generate more revenue for the city or decrease liabilities. So with that table setting, let's get started on item 4A, and we'll just go item by item. So administration, you're welcome to the table.
Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Sure, other places you'd rather be, but thank you for being here today.
I'd
I
rather
appreciate it.
be, as most vice president and the president of the council, budget chair, Councilmember Green. As you know, the CEO, Gilbert Montano, is still on annual leave. As the deputy, I came here and we discussed, saw the agenda items and put together agenda for discussion, also assembled, I believe, most of the staff to answer the question. One of the disclaimers is there's a couple items on the agenda that are in litigation, so it's only so much I'll be able to talk about or that I know about as it pertains to my need to know. So with that, Jonathan, do you want to start the briefing? I've got Jonathan Harris with me, Chief of Staff. I've got Denisha Turner with me, the City Attorney, Austin Wiltie, who is also running Deputy CEO for other business external services, and I've got Brandy DeLarge, who is Director of Budget.
Hey, council members, I think the presentation that Joe is referring to is the revenue enhancement, so we'll kind of defer to y'all in the order that you want to go through.
That's going to be last. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I was
want
gonna
to
say,
get
okay.
through the other stuff first, because we're going to occupy people's time unnecessarily, John, and I don't want to make people sit here longer. So I'd like to go item by item, starting with 4A, and given my recusal from this, I'm going to step back and looking at Councilmember Morrell now.
Essentially, obviously, we all kind of know where we stand on the trash contract as far as we have a current emergency contract that's in place that is with IV Waste that goes through December 22nd, correct?
Correct.
And I guess part of my concern is, one, December 22nd is not the end of the term. And a concern that I have right now is it is obvious from the recent Fourth Circuit hearing that because of the IV Waste contract in effect, there is no sense of urgency from the Fourth Circuit to rush this case to a decision. And as attorneys, we understand that even when the Fourth Circuit renders an opinion, it is more than likely one, if not both parties, are probably going to appeal to the Supreme Court. The challenge therein lies, one, have we analyzed what are our options as far as extending the IV contract if we don't have a decision from the Supreme Court before the end of this mayor's term?
I, just speaking from CEO's office, and I'll let Counsel Denisha Turner speak. We have discussed strategies around that. Right now, IV Waste is the vendor who's taking care of Area 5, French Quarter DDD. We are aware of the deadline for the contract. We're discussing all the options pending litigation. And that's about, we have not entered into major discussions with the mayor at this time.
And certainly, I don't want to make it seem like, certainly we'd all hope that there's resolution before the 22nd, but if there isn't, I just want to make sure, because I don't want to be back here like we were last month where we're all doing last minute scrambles the last day of the contract. I want there to be kind of an acknowledgement, because especially when I read the comments from Judge Lebrano where she said, like, we'll get to this decision when we get to it. The Fourth Circuit come back tomorrow, they come back 2 months from now. And I just don't want to be put in a position where we are back where we were at the end of July, where we have to talk about who's on first and who's on second and how do we take care of 2 blocks in the DDD. So the fact that you guys are already talking about that, the possibility, addresses one of my issues. The other thing is, certainly, as I've stated previously, I generally have concerns that, and I've expressed this to the city attorney numerous occasions. I continually have heartburn that the council's defending itself against Mr. Henry's suit, and we continue to defend ourselves against Mr. Henry's suit, though it is a suit against the city of New Orleans. And I have wondered, has there been any reconsideration by the city attorney's office to lend assistance? Because when we don't have assistance, we have to hire private counsel and expend city resources in a less elegant and more expensive way.
Councilman Morrell, I'll definitely take a look at that. What I don't want, and I'm sure you don't want as an attorney either, is for there to be some sort of conflict. So I'll take a look at that. My office will take a look at that, and I'll get back to you on it.
Okay, because I don't know what the conflict would be insofar as we have contractors that sue the city all the time, and the city attorney's office, even though you may be negotiating contracts with contractor A over here, if he's suing us over here, there really hasn't been a conflict historically. And from my perspective, as we're facing ongoing and massive potential budget deficits, anything that we can do to minimize cost to the city, and we all can agree outside counsel is much more expensive than city attorneys. I would certainly really encourage you to revisit that as an option, because I'm very happy with, I mean, obviously, we've won some cases recently, so I'm happy with our outside counsel, but at the same time, I'm very cognizant of how expensive outside counsel is.
And I'm aware of that, so I'll definitely take a look at that and get back to you.
Okay, that's all I have on French Quarter. Does anyone else have anything on French Quarter?
All right,
All right,
let's move.
thank you.
Great. Yeah, let's move to the next item. This is about Wisner. I'm aware of Ms. Durio's email, but I don't think the questions, A, that I'm going to ask are legal in nature, and B, this is not a private litigation where it's two ABC Inc. versus XYZ Co. going at it. These are city dollars at stake, and that makes this different, and I don't know why it seems like Ms. Durio and others have trouble understanding that, but this is not a business litigation case. This involves public dollars for the city. So my first question is, as a result of the council agreeing not to post a bond with the recent appeal, we, the city, were supposed to receive millions of dollars from money that was held in escrow. First question, where is that money? And that's not subject to litigation, y'all. I mean, that's just a flat out, like, where, I mean, that is not a, I'm trying to get you to tell your strategy. And I just want to say this too, for Councilmember Thomas, if he comes later, I very clearly sent these, sort of items over 2 weeks ago, and this isn't a surprise. So, Ms. Richardson?
Yes, we are in receipt of the funds. The funds have been direct deposited into our bank account, and they are in we have a Wisner lamp account, is that correct? We have a Wisner lamp account where we always hold all Wisner funds, and so that's where they are.
And this may be tough off the top of your head, Frida, but I know you're really good. Do you happen to know the fund number off the top of your head?
The Wisner fund number is, I think it's 5156, but let me verify that for
That's
you.
fine. Will you let us know? Also, you heard me say that we appropriated the money today for LSU, so that money's going to increase. So I'd like to know also how much money was recently deposited, and then once we finalize with LSU, what the number is going to be.
Okay, we can get that to you.
Yeah, thank you. Because Councilmember Morel,
We can get you the fund balance and with no appropriations out of it. We
Yeah,
can tell you what the
right.
current fund balance is.
yeah, thank you. Because I think we've talked about what that will be used for. My next question is, we set the council, I keep on saying we, but I want to be very clear. The council settled with Tulane. The council appropriated $20 million for Tulane. Has that money been allocated to Tulane?
You're referring to the capital budget order,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Well, what do you mean by allocated?
Well,
Like, has
I
a
mean,
payment been made to Tulane?
yes, that's what I mean.
Oh, yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I know we identified those funds in the bond workup, and I don't know if it's been enough time, Councilmember Jeruso, to actually come back into, it might be one of the up-and-coming council meetings where we put together that amendment and get it up to you.
Well, I mean, it's all been done. So, I mean, remember, that's what the mayor vetoed and we overrode unanimously.
Right.
So we're past that period of time. So I'm asking and again, let me also be very clear about this does not affect the operating budget at all. These are capital funds that we used from this budget, and then we put the other amount into the upcoming bond sale. So all we
Right,
did,
I understand.
yeah, we just switched the order.
And I
That's
don't
it.
have Kyle here with me and Capital Budget Director, but I'll get you an answer.
Okay.
today.
And I just also like to point out, so the email doesn't say this, that what we were told is since this was pursuant to a settlement, and again, the council sued here, that a CEA wasn't needed. So that's what the memorandum we received from the law department said. So I'd like to know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'll get you the information.
Okay. Last question, and you all may not answer this, but I'm going to ask, is the CAO, Mr. CAO, are you aware that based on this position that you're leaving revenue on the table by continuing to side with the heirs in this litigation? I mean, just asking if you understand if the council prevails right now, even if we lose in court, we have 60% roughly of the ownership after we settle with LSU. If we prevail, the council prevails, we'll be at 100%. So all I'm asking is the administration aware that its position is leaving revenue on the table? That's not a legal question. That's a straight up financial one.
Kim?
I'm not aware of that personally. I can speak for myself. I am not aware of that.
All right.
I'm not up to speed on the details enough to know exactly what you're referring to.
So, all right, Mr. Harris, this is like a simple question. The city's proportion of the now defunct trust was 35%. The court has ruled that the ownership fully vests with the city. Tulane has settled with the city, and LSU is about ready to settle with the city. That makes the city, the council, I keep on conflating, and I want to be clear. It's with the council. That means the city's proportionate share is now 60%. The mayor is part of the group who is appealing that judgment. All I'm asking is 100% of some ownership more than 60% of ownership? That's not a
hypothetical. That makes total sense. Yes.
Yes, okay, that's all I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
All right,
Can I add a point, Mr. Drusow?
yes, absolutely.
I think you're asking a lawyer cross-examination question,
Go for it.
and I think it needs to be more basic. Why would the mayor sue for the city to get less money?
Like I say, I am Deputy CEO for the city of New Orleans. Gilbert's not here, and I have not discussed it with the mayor. I start my turnover on Monday, but I will bring it.
So you'll be able to answer that question on Tuesday?
I hope by Tuesday, Wednesday, one of the days this week.
I just want to, because I want to say it in more, like I said, not a less lawyer, more lay person way. The council seeking to get 100% of Wisner for the city of New Orleans. The heirs are seeking their damnedest to keep the city at 35%, absent the settlements we've done. So to be on the side of the heirs, to be joining in the heirs in the appeal, is to take the position the city should get less money. Where I think we all struggle is how someone who is the chief executive for the city could be part on the other side of the V, supporting a position that argues the city should get less money, because it's beyond illogical. It's nonsense. I mean, the council already did the heavy lifting. We already won the primary case. It's one thing before Judge Reese's ruling to say, well, I'm hedging our bets. If we lose, I don't want to lose. But we've settled with Tulane. We're settling with LSU. We have gone from 35% to arguably 53, going to 60%. To continue to appeal means that as an appellant, you're hoping the heirs win and the city loses 40% of 100%. I need somebody, and it probably has to somebody as you, Mr. Threat, by Tuesday of next week, to give us a logical reason how that benefits the citizens of the city. How this benefits when we're facing a $100 million deficit, how getting less money is secretly a good thing, because I really struggle with that. I mean, honestly, I would have thought when we won the first case, all of us would be on the same side of the VB going, well, we're getting 100% of 100%, and instead it's jarring to see the city, as in the mayor's office and administration, on the other side saying we should have less money. So I'll look forward to that answer next week if you can get it.
Yeah, I'll take it back to the mayor and CEO.
I would like to add just two finer points. we tried to raise this in executive session on June 26th, so we're now almost 2 months later and don't have an answer. And I want to echo what Councilmember Morel said, which is, we're all sitting here trying to figure out how we reduce expenses and raise revenue. We're aligned in that goal. I don't understand why we can't be aligned on this goal where revenue generation would be very clear. That's the only, and I think it's a really fair and basic question. And given where we are, it should be less about strategy and more about what serves the city the best.
Right, I understand.
All right. Councilmember Green.
Yeah, I haven't commented too much on the Wisner Trust before, but I'll tell you that I think an injustice has been done to Dr. Wisner since 2014. This was supposed to be a 100-year situation where the city would become the full owner. I hope that the issue can be worked out and that the administration can communicate with those on our end, because if you want to know the truth, I favor a clawback going back to 2014, but I would not be able to secure the votes for that. But it's important to continue to keep in mind the legacy of Ed Wisner and what he wanted to do, which was to benefit the city of New Orleans fully. I think that the documents clearly reflect his intention, and I just hope that we can be on the same page working, because this fund has a potential to provide very needed revenues to the city for a very long period of time. But it's also important to recognize that Dr. Wisner intended for this city to benefit and to not be going through what's been happening for the last 11 years. So.
All right. I want to move over to the school board discussion now. In fairness, this is a little bit more of an expense side question than a revenue question. But, you know, if we lose in court, it's a huge liability. So I guess my first question is, and Councilmember Morel isn't here, but we passed an ordinance to stop collection of the ad valorem and sales tax fee regarding the school board. So first, is everybody at the table aware of that ordinance that we passed, I think, in April? I see some head nod yet. Can I get I'm sorry, just like, yes, like we're aware of that? Can I get somebody?
I am
Yes,
personally
okay.
aware of it.
All right, thank you. All right, next question. Is money still being withheld?
I don't know. I am personally unaware.
Well,
whether it's
I
being
mean,
withheld.
again, I pose these sort of questions, so I would like somebody, I would expect somebody either at the table or the audience to have that question right now, because that's not I don't know the fund number, or I can't, is it 3.2 million, 3.3 million, like, we should know. Is the money still being withheld?
Is this not a part of the litigation?
I don't see how it's part of the litigation.
That was one of the issues, and I'll defer to the city attorney on that. The fees, the collection fees. Wasn't that part of the litigation?
And I would just say, I've never received notice that was, I received notice from Ms. Durio through our lawyer that she didn't want to ask legal questions asked about Wisner, okay. But I didn't receive notice about questions about OPSB. And in fact, my question and response was, there's other litigation matters that are on here, so why aren't we talking about Wisner at the same time? So I don't understand why, I don't understand how lack of enforcement of an ordinance is in litigation. The ordinance was filed after the litigation. So has something been amended to say that the city, I mean, I'm just asking a question. Let's start here. The ordinance was effect in April. Has anything in court been amended to say that the city does not have to collect that money?
There's nothing in court has been amended. The city still stands by its position that they are entitled to those collection fees. So it's still being litigated.
In other words, the city, so you misstepped out on this. The city's position right now is that since the OPSB matter is being litigated, the ordinance that you passed unanimously stopping collection is subject to litigation. I'm gonna step out and let you take it from here.
I'm not speaking for the city on it. I'm just telling you the status of the litigation. So,
The statute of litigation is immaterial to an ordinance that was passed unanimously and not vetoed. The ordinance currently states that the fee cannot be collected. So is the intent of the administration to violate the ordinance and to count that revenue next year? It's a yes or no question.
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure if we.
Ms. Samuel, is it the intent of the finance department to collect that fee next year?
If the work is being done, yes.
Okay, so despite the fact there is an ordinance, a law that says you cannot collect that fee, you intend to collect that fee.
It is my understanding that it is part of the litigation. That's the extent that I know of.
Okay, then let's do this. Ms. Turner, you are aware of the fact that council passed an ordinance, correct?
Yes,
And that ordinance does not allow for the finance department to collect that fee, correct? I can pull the ordinance and read it to you if you'd like me to. It says you cannot collect the fee.
you can pull it if you like, and if that's what you say it says.
Okay,
It's not
so
for me.
if there's an ordinance that says a fee cannot be collected, how do you legally collect the fee?
I believe the reason why the fee continued to be collected is because it's in litigation.
That is the most nonsensical answer I've ever heard. Because your position on why the fee is being collected is because the city has the ability to collect a fee, correct?
I'm telling you that what I am hearing as I sit here today is that the fee is still being collected because we're in litigation. So I will get with finance and we'll work it out.
I hear the words that you're saying. The basis of a fee being collected is because the fee being collected is legally permissible. If the council makes the collection of the fee no longer legally permissible, I do not understand. I have read everything Judge Shepard has put out. I don't believe Judge Shepard has said, notwithstanding the law, you could continue to collect your fee. I'm really struggling here because I do not understand how, as the city attorney, if you are aware of a law that prohibits a practice, that your position is that because there's litigation pending, we can break the law.
No, that is not what I said at all. What I said is, what I'm hearing from finance is the reason why the fee continues to be collected is because we're in litigation. We
Is
did
finance the
not-
law department?
No,
Okay.
no. So
Finance.
what I'm also saying is, we didn't get together. That's not something that we got together and had a specific conversation about. And so what I also said was that I will get with finance and we would discuss it.
Okay. Ms. Samuel, who gave you the legal rationale that the fee has to continue to be collected?
Well, nothing changed from the services that we've always provided for school board, RTA, and other partners. There's a fee that was charged, just as if we're charged the fee by the state to collect on our behalf. So as long as the
I hear you.
services are provided and the work is being done and the distributions are being made on a monthly basis, the fee was relevant.
So what you're saying is that no one has told you or told you to interrupt the fee being collected?
No, not to my understanding
even-
because of the litigation that is going on.
Okay, your position is that the litigation trumps the council ordinance.
I'll defer to my attorney. I don't,
Okay, this is like Groundhog Day, where I keep having the same cycle over and over again. I have yet to hear a coherent argument that if the council forbids a practice in the city of New Orleans, a law that was passed 7-0 without a mayoral veto, how there is possibly a legal position that says, nah, bruh, like, I gotta understand this. And I get speaking to me slower does not make the argument any less ridiculous. And I appreciate the two of y'all need to meet, but I don't know why, if the council passes an ordinance directing finance to do something, somebody had to tell you if how when did we pass that ordinance, Joe? April. We passed an ordinance in April that you are not following currently.
Okay.
Either you're willfully not following the law, or someone at the law department told you not to do it.
So
Those
are
two
we to
things-
continue the work, is my question. I'm just asking a question.
Because the ordinance instructs you to collect the fee gratis and to not charge for it. That's what the ordinance currently says.
So we work for free.
You work for free through the end of next year, at which point either the school board starts collecting their own thing or they negotiate a fee with you.
And what's the date next year?
It
At
is-
the end of
I believe it's-
26?
I think it's the end of 26.
Okay.
So basically, the way the ordinance is written, we collect the fee gratis from now through 2026. At the end of 2026, if they have not worked out an agreement with the city for collection, you don't collect it anymore. They have to go figure it out on their own.
Okay, but until that time, we
Till then,
are
for
bearing
the-
that expense.
Correct. We are burdened with that expense.
Okay, so $8 to $10 million we have to eat every year?
Well, I mean, if that's the,
You can show that
if you
$8 to
could
$10
show,
million worth of
what
work
is the,
is
what is
done.
the entire budget of the Department of Finance?
I'm asking a question.
No,
I just
I'm asking a
asked-
question.
Well, but I'm asking a question too, because what you're saying is that finance is performing a service of $8 to $10 million based on.
We're talking overall collection.
no,
So if we
no.
need to break it down for you, we could. But my question is, are we working for free? The answer was yes.
The answer is yes for now. The other part to follow up is, we've been asking the administration to sit down and have a conversation and see if we can settle this. The
So
answer,
what's to stop all the other partners from challenging the fee?
I don't understand what other
RTA
partners.
and other,
Well, I mean,
RTA and other people that we collect on behalf of, Council on Aging, those
I don't.
parties.
I think what we're trying to get to, and again, this is where having a conversation helps, is that my guess is people would say, if there's a rational basis between the work being done and the fee collected, that's okay.
But Joe, it's not even a rational basis.
Right.
The issue is this: a fee for a service requires you to show how the amount
Right.
charged covered the service done.
That's
Okay.
what I'm
If what-
saying.
if- no, you're not.
That's okay. Go
Does
ahead.
it, what is the, Mr. Threat, what is the budget of the entire Department of Finance? How much does it cost for that department to operate?
I don't have those numbers right now.
I would be very surprised that if we pulled the entire budget of the Department of Finance, the charge singularly to collect only the school board's portion of taxes is, what, $12 million?
I'll have to get that for you.
Is $8 to $12 million. You would have to show that in order, legally speaking, from state law, which preempts local law, you would have to show the fee that we are charging to perform a service is what the service costs.
Okay.
If your budget, let's say the Department of Finance is $30 million, you'd have to come here and testify 30% of the work you do as the school board.
Okay. So let me ask this question. Do we now petition the state to stop charging us a fee for collections?
First off, one, you would have to, if you can prove the state is overcharging you the fee and that they are not providing the service for the said fee, because I'll give you an example. In Jefferson Parish has a similar school system. Their fee for school board collection is $300,000.
Okay.
That's because that's how much it costs for them to process it. So I hear that you keep saying we do the work and that's why we get $12 million. I would say that I hear you, show me $12 million worth of work. Because that is, a fee is not the same as a tax. A fee has to be for a specific service. You can't just say, it cost me $50 million to process alcohol beverage permits. In order for a fee to be legal, you have to show, here are the staffers that are dedicated to that service, here is what the return is for that service, and the end result is $0. It balances out to what it costs, or close to it. If the amount you're charging is more than what it costs to perform the service, that is no longer a fee, that's a tax. That's the difference. And the challenge we've had, which is why DDD won their case and why the school board's going to win their case, is that you and your predecessors have never proved that the city is doing $12 million worth of work exclusive.
It is not exclusive to OPSB.
That's the problem. The problem is
wrong.
that your fee for OPSB can only be for OPSB. If you're going to charge them a $12 million fee.
That is not what we charge OPSB. It is overall. We can get you the exact numbers
I
on
would love to see the
OPSB.
breakdown as to how much you charge OPSB.
Okay.
Because if you can verify that it costs that amount of money, that would have made for a better legal case than what the city presented.
Okay.
What the city presented was, this is what we've charged, what we want to keep charging.
Okay.
Well, and I just want to say this, Ms. Samuel asked the question, should I work for free? That's why I started off with my question, has the city challenged this? If you think the council has violated the law or is doing something, then the administration's had no problem fighting us on other stuff. In fact, everything we're going through has been a unnecessary fight, in my view. So what I'm saying here is, if you think we're wrong, that's fine. Go take it across the street.
Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So the budget of the entire Department of Finance is $13 million. So if we're charging the school board $8 million for fee collection, good luck in front of a judge explaining that that would make 3/4 of the finance department working for the Orleans Parish School Board.
We have those numbers for you.
I guess before we get to Councilmember Green, I just want to stress, guys, like, this is a big liability for the city of New Orleans, and we're going to have to come to some sort of accommodation. I would much rather do that voluntarily with the school board, the administration, and us, rather than letting courts decide what happens, and two things happening. Number one, that the city gets saddled with a judgment equal to or greater than what the proposed settlement is. And then number two, reducing the fee to a significant extent absent any negotiation. Because both of those are on the table to happen. And my personal belief, and this is what I tell my clients all the time, you generally do better trying to get something resolved together than letting a judge or jury decide it. Councilmember Green?
I certainly hope those discussions will take place. I'd just like to add a little bit to the discussion, and I know, Ms. Samuels, it's something that's a little bit tension-creating and challenging, but this is actually, in my opinion, something that should have been addressed some time ago, because state law prohibits governmental agencies from basically making a profit off of another governmental agency. And the way that this collection is done right now, we can't reasonably say that we are doing enough services to justify that amount. But I know that it presents us a really tough problem because it's a lot of money. It's a lot of revenues that we've relied on and that is in the budget. But at the end of the day, if it has to come back on the city council that we address something that was long overdue, and you have to come back to us and we have to make adjustments and we have to make cuts or whatever it is, if it costs that to abide by state law, we either change the state law or we abide by it. And this is just something that has been long overdue. I want the revenues to come in. I want it to be available to us. I want us to not have any need to make cuts cuts or to raise taxes or the like. But there are some issues, and this is just one issue that I think some time ago needed to be addressed, just like the Wisner Fund, in my opinion, from 2014. Everything that we've been doing since then, in my opinion, has been contrary to the will of Mr. Wisner. But at the end of the day, I hope that we can have the discussion that the Budget Committee and you, the Budget Committee Chair, and you and the administration and our Chair of Governmental Relations can sit in the same room and work this out. But we're not going to win because people are insisting on the following of the laws. This is a state law.
We'll get the correct numbers for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Joe, you're not officially in the saddle till Tuesday, but I'd like to meet before, sort of all the heavy Katrina stuff kicks off, because I just think, and Samuel, anybody else who wants to meet, but I really think it's hard for me to receive in good faith questions about expanding revenue and doing things with expenses when the will of the council is not being followed and we can't get answers to our questions. I mean, it makes it, I want to be on the same page. I don't want to fight, but if you can't give me the information and give me the basis for the disagreement, it makes it tough. And if it's just we're going to litigate, then just like let's just say that out loud. If the answer is, and I'm not saying this directly to you, Joe, or anybody else, but writ large, if the answer is, if the council is for it, the administration is going to be against it, let's just say it. Let's just get it on the record. Let's just say, council says the sun's outside, the administration is going to say it's raining. Okay, then we'll just fight it. It'd be a lot easier because then we just know where the lines are being drawn. And all I want to do is try and make sure the city is as financially healthy as possible, which I think is ultimately your goal too.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, that requires people trying to get on the same page. That's all I want.
I agree.
All right, great.
And
Okay.
Councilman?
Councilmember Green.
Maybe we can work together to try to change the state law if we think that's necessary.
mean-
But sometimes we've been doing things at the city that run contrary to, and it's not the fault of anybody probably in this room, because I could look at some of the things that we don't do that the law requires us to do differently. This is just one of those instances, but there are enough people here who can get in the same room tomorrow or the next day so that we don't have to have this as a contentious issue next week. We just have to be on, we have to have that discussion. But the city council is not desirous of the city receiving any less revenue than it's supposed to receive. We want more, because I want more to be able to do the things in my district that need to be done. But sometimes we're hamstrung by laws. I'm hamstrung by state law relative to the thoroughfares that run through District D. The city has been spending so much money, don't get me started again, but the city has been
did
spending
to yourself.
so much money on the public thoroughfares that belong to the state of Louisiana. I'd like to look at tightening that up so that we don't spend that, because technically we're violating regulations of the state relative to maintenance on their own thoroughfares. It's just a lot that we need to discuss, and this is one. And I hate the fact that it's tension-filled because we're trying to follow the law to the letter of the law, but there's a lot that we maybe need to look at in general, and this is just one of the many issues.
Yes, and just to your point, Councilmember Drew, so I look forward to sitting down with you probably next week. It's better. Just for the counselors this week, we're like all day, 8 hours a day with Plant Moran going through developing transitional documents. So next week will be good before the Katrina celebrations really kick off, and I'll be drinking out a fire hose from Gilbert up to that, and hopefully I'll be up to speed on a lot of the issues we talked about today.
Great, thank you, I appreciate it. All right, let's move to item D, which is the administration's position on West End development. I guess I'm a little confused about this one because this has kind of been handed around like a hot potato for a long period of time. We've discussed publicly that the revenue split would be 50-50 since I've been involved in the project, largely because we're going to have to rely on Jefferson Parish to do some of the things that need to be done in terms of permitting and other aspects, and because Jefferson Parish, even though they have a smaller percentage of the overall land, have the more desirable part of the land than we do. We have the parking, but they got the waterfront, and people aren't coming for the parking. They're coming for the Lakeview.
So I've invited Lynette Doyle, who is the collector of revenue.
Okay.
Sorry, I did not introduce myself when I came up the first time. Romy Samuel, Director of Finance. I think what you assume was the discussion that the city would benefit is not actually the case. Ms. Doyle sat in on no less than 4 meetings, and she can explain it to you. But in summary, the city would get nothing. That 50-50 split is the 5%. 50 of that goes to the school board and RTA, and the other 50%, which is 2.5, would go to the city. And Ms. Doyle can confirm.
But
Jefferson Parish wanted the 100% of our half.
Right, but I guess the question the city would get money from the rent though.
But why would we pledge something legally ours at sales tax to another parish?
But you can't, here's the thing. If we don't do it, 0% of 0 is 0. It's always going to be 0. I mean, in other words, right now, that property is laying fallow and doing nothing. And it's laid fallow and done nothing since Katrina. So aren't we better off doing a deal where we're generating revenue, even if, because we get the rent. We get the rent from the land.
But why would we forego, if we're talking about revenue enhancements, why would we forego any sales tax? Why, we've proposed an economic development district
So
that
that's
you
fine.
can levy an additional tax if revenue share is on the table.
That we've always agreed to that.
But Jefferson won't agree to it.
That's not my understanding. I mean, I'm just saying, listen, my understanding is they won't agree to the split of 70-30, but
On the rents, right?
oh yeah, we get the rents. Oh, absolutely.
No, is it 70-30 split on the rent?
No, I think it's only on tax. I don't think it's only on tax. Look, but hang on. But, all right, so you're gonna have the tax revenue, you're gonna have the lease revenue, right? And right now, we're getting a big fat zero. I mean, I just don't understand. And we can't say it's a zero, because if we're getting rent money, you're getting rent money that is nothing right now.
Councilman Drew, so in my conversations with the Jefferson Parish officials, one of the last things that we did recommend, all of the things actually that we recommended were wholly rejected by Jefferson Parish officials. That included splitting the 2.5% sales tax 50-50. That was rejected. It included us assessing an additional tax on top of the sales tax like we do at the airport, for instance. The airport, the city of New Orleans previously never received any of the sales taxes on the businesses operating at the airport because the airport is domiciled in Jefferson Parish. So an additional 2% was levied so that Orleans Parish could take part in some of those revenue collections, right? So our other suggestion was to also assess an additional tax over and above the 2.5% and share that. That was also rejected. And then when we came up with the rents that were to be imposed and the city of New Orleans would receive, that split, as I remember, was a 70-30 split, and that was still on the table. We have not heard anything since that time, not that I am aware of, that Jefferson even agreed to the 70-30 split on the rent. So that's where we were. That was the last thing that we offered on the table that was there, and we had not heard back from Jefferson Parish. But everything else that we put on the table was wholly rejected.
All right, well, again, my understanding could be wrong. I'll be the first to say that. My understanding was the tax revenue was the split of 50-50 was kind of what's hanging everything up. Well, look, I said I may be wrong. I see you shaking your head. My wife will tell you I'm very fallible, okay? She'd be the first one to say it. I will agree. But what I'm willing to do is go back to Jefferson Parish and say, if we can get to the tax split of 70-30, and if we should keep the EDD money because it needs to go to services for the land, and I would argue it should be tied to the services for the land, because we don't want to suck money out for sanitation and infrastructure, other places, and the rent is okay, then I think we should be able to have a deal. I just want to make sure that my marching orders are clear. Because I'm ready, I'm 100% willing to go back.
Councilmember, it's my understanding in communication with NOBC that most of the development, if not all, would be on the Orleans Parish side, correct?
That is correct. Initially, it was kind of a moving target, but we settled on, since the new pumping stations in the 17th Street Canal, when they were rebuilt, the force of the water in the lake would not allow for buildings in the water, so that all of the businesses would be domiciled wholly in Orleans Parish, and there may be some businesses abutting the Jefferson Parish line. That is the conversation we had with...
I don't think that's, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. My understanding is a 4-acre tract. You're right, where your right is, that if you're over the water, you're in Jefferson Parish, but Jefferson Parish owns a little bit in. And so what you're missing out is that inlet of about an acre that runs all the way here past Fitzgerald's over, and the city owns in. I'm not sure, and I don't think that all of the land is in Orleans. But B, you really got a hard problem if you're saying to your partner who's right there, we don't want to do anything, and then here's what happens. They say, oh, you don't want to be our partner, fine, we won't do anything. We're not going to cut the grass, we're not going to tend to services. You have a homeless problem there, that's your problem. I mean, that doesn't help any of us. So, and let me just say this too. Like, again, trying to solve for a problem, like, this is a state body of water that Jefferson Parish owns the water bottom in a little bit, and the city owns the rest of it.
3070, yeah.
Yeah, like, it'd be really awesome to have a regional development project for all of us so we can stop sort of yelling about the Orleans-Jefferson differences and say how we held hands and did something together. And here's just my other worry is this all sort of imploded not only because of Katrina, obviously, but because at the end there was all these fighting about tax revenues, and then the city started charging parking there, and people stopped going. So I'd rather get this taken front end and make sure everybody understands the rules of the road, and that we, that we all have something that's a win for everybody. That's all.
And, we've gotten here because historically, I don't know if the city was offered the same consideration we're trying to give now. I will certainly give you my reservation about pledging anything that's legally ours, sales tax.
Right.
And I would recommend we do the EDD, the Economic Development District, to levy the tax, but what happens in Orleans Parish as it relates to sales tax transactions should be retained by the general.
But again, if part of the property's in Jefferson, then it's arguably Jefferson's too.
Well, and that's the reason for the economic development.
Well, and I'm fine with I mean, again, as long as the EDD money stays on site, then I think it makes all the sense. And we've always talked about it, and in fact, just like real talk here, like we sort of delayed doing it because of the fact that they had their elections. We didn't want to get in the middle of all of that. So I think the EDD, Romy, Ms. Samuel, has always been on the table. And look, if they didn't understand, trust me, I'll be on the phone with Councilmember Lozenberg either later today or tomorrow to say, hey, we need to have a conversation about that. Okay?
That would be great,
got
Councilman,
it.
because we did bring that up early on about the EDD, and that was not accepted
Yeah. Well,
in some of our initial discussions. So that
yeah.
would be great. We weren't necessarily opposed to that. That's why we offered that
That
as
sounds
a
good.
possible solution.
All right, let's see if we can solve for this because, not that I'm counting, but with 152 days for me and for y'all, it'd be nice to have at least a groundbreaking out there. I don't think we'll have a ribbon cutting, but it's nice to have a groundbreaking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last one about discussion, I think mainly before the presentation, is the traffic cameras. I guess I've seen on the way to work where the yellow striping has been put down and there's some white paint. We passed, I think, the CEA with the school board either last month or the month before. So is there an issue with let's start here. Is there an issue with the school board signing the CEA now?
Yes, and
Okay.
they have some more questions. So we submitted the CEA to the school board, and I believe that their last meeting, they were going to defer it until their next meeting coming up.
Okay.
So we're still waiting on the school board.
I mean, do they realize they're missing, like, here's the whole conversation. Do they realize they're just missing revenue? I mean, we have an agreement in principle, right? I mean, the city gets 60%, they get 40%. They're complaining about a budget hole. And again, Ms. Turner, that's not your problem, that's their problem. But they're leaving money on the table.
You're preaching to the choir.
Are all the school zones now equipped in line with Senator Kathy's law about how the school zone signage needs to be? No, they're not all equipped yet?
DPW is currently working on it.
Okay.
I spoke with
And obviously that's
someone this morning. We should have 15 done by the end of the week, and I'm
Okay.
told perhaps the rest will be done in about a month.
all right. So will the plan then be, let's assume for argument's sake that the CEA gets signed before a month from now. Would the plan then be to turn on the 15 cameras where the signage is, and then to turn on the cameras after the painting and signage is correctly done later?
Correct. The plan is to comply with the state law as it is now.
All right.
So we will not turn on the cameras until we have the signage
Oh.
and the CEA.
All right, so those are the two issues right now, is that you both have an issue, we both have an issue with the fact that the CEA hasn't been signed by the school board, And then secondly, there's a certain number of schools where the paint and the signage is correctly done, but then we have another set of schools where it's going to take more time, about another month for it to be done.
Yeah, and Councilmember Jeruso, I'll give you the details of it. I've got the folks in the innovative office in the CAO's office working on that right now.
Okay. I'm going to ask questions that may get like figurative tomatoes thrown at me, but are there any plans to put more cameras in other school zones? I mean, and the reality why I'm asking the question is it generates, I mean, you can't have mobile traffic units anymore, right? Because I think the law is only for school zones and for red lights. So if we want to talk about safety, not deploying traffic resources to school zones, making sure that schools have money, the city can have money for infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think that when we talked about getting together our meetings, I'll bring our team in so they can brief you up on where we are. We've talked about that, though.
All right, so the bottom line answers are no camera will be turned on until the CEA is signed. There are a certain number of schools where the signage is appropriate and the paint has been laid, but the cameras aren't turned on because the CEA isn't signed. And then there's another group of schools for which there's cameras, but there's not the necessary markings to turn on the camera yet.
And that's correct.
All right, well,
And one moment.
yeah, absolutely.
Jeruso, did you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think, we'll speak about, fee defraying costs and fees and defraying costs in a second, but I think it's just noteworthy that, the street markings, it is coming an additional expense to the city. So, moving forward, I hope there could be some collaboration with the council about, at the very least, I hope the marking and stuff are following the MUTCD, and that it's not just an attempt to add further complications to our, operational and fiscal budget.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, I'm happy to have that conversation. I mean, obviously, too, if this, and I don't know the reasons why the school board hasn't signed the CEA. I truly don't, but the delay is meaning that they won't have cameras, they won't have people slowing down necessarily in the school zones, and if they both want safety and revenue, it might seem like a good idea to make that a higher priority.
But in the name of safety, the city, we are turning on the flashing beacons to notify, motorists that there is a school and,
That raises
slow down in those school zones.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That raises another good point. Is the city proactively contacting the contractor to say if somebody got a ticket after the cameras were turned off and it's mailed to them that they don't have to pay or it's already taken care of? Because I'm starting to get just letting you know, not a trick question. I've gotten a couple of those emails, and so I just don't want to like snowstorm story repeating itself unnecessarily. So we can handle that front end.
Assistant city attorneys that work in municipal and traffic court, they are aware.
Okay, well, I guess, is it fair for us to be able to tell the public that if they got a traffic camera ticket for whatever reason after the cameras were turned off, that they don't have to pay that?
If they got an automated traffic camera after August 1st of this year, they do not have to pay it.
Okay.
I think that's fair to say.
All right, perfect. Okay, anybody else? All right, let's move.
No, I'm
Oh,
present.
Councilmember Green,
And
absolutely.
I guess let me be clear, if it was issued, like if they were.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, got it. All right, Councilmember Green, then we'll move on to item F.
How confident are you, Madam City Attorney, relative to the school board executing the CEA? And is there anything that the council can do to help move that forward?
This
CEA.
relative to the
The
CEA.
CEA. What's the issue? I mean, we don't know. Councilman Jeruso said he doesn't know, but somebody knows.
Well, when we submit the CEAs, they are
So
requesting
they're just
additional
reviewing. They haven't.
documents.
Well, go ahead.
No, I believe the last time they requested additional documents.
So I have an email on May 19th saying it was good to go. So we were under the impression the CEA had been agreed to by both parties leading up to their July 22nd meeting. At the July 22nd meeting, they had further questions. It was then deferred to the August 19th meeting, I believe. I've since heard that they possibly may defer till September. So we've reached out to Ms. Forrest and are trying to see what questions, we went back and reviewed the hearing, obviously. So if they have additional questions, we're certainly open to talk through them with them.
How do these delays impact safety?
How do these delays with turning on the cameras? I mean, I think that the narrative around the cameras has been a difficult one, but, talking to Dan Jotras and other people, we've issued less tickets and received less revenue because the traffic cameras are curbing and training the behavior of the citizens. They are slowing down in school zones. And so I think that is the disappointing part about all of this, is that we implemented this program, I believe, in 2010, and yes, it had problems along the way, but that's 2 years before the New Orleans the NOPD consent decree went into effect. And so I think it raises some questions as to, NOPD having to refigure how they police or operationally. So I think all that should be worked through with the council and the administration.
I'm just concerned because it was back in May that it seemed that everything was okay, and there's been delays, and we're still not at the point where we can say almost halfway definitively, that's a new expression, but we can't say definitively when it'll be executed. At the end of the day, we could have many more months ahead, which affects revenues and public safety. I wish that we could get a better answer as to when we might execute the CEA. And I implore you to put the required questions to the school board so that we can move forward.
And OPSB, to their credit, did say we could enter into one CEA for all the Orleans Parish School Board schools, which again helped that effort. I believe the Archdiocese was taking a different approach where they wanted us to negotiate kind of a one CEA, but then the individual Archdiocese schools would all sign. And then you also have a few outliers, the Bessie schools, some other ones. And so, again, I think it goes to the intent of the law and whether it was really meant to help the city in public safety or to dismantle our program.
That was a very diplomatic way of putting that. Because there's always something behind the laws. That's kind of why I asked. All right.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yeah, just want to, just for some clarity, you're not disappointed that people are slowing down and obeying the school zones. We're not, your focus may be on the loss of revenue, but we're not upset that people are obeying the traffic laws, especially when it comes to school and safety zones. We're happy about that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, my opinion is even if this is cost neutral, if people are slowing down and saving lives, then it's beneficial to the city.
Okay, because you had mentioned that your concern was the loss of revenue. But when you talk about programs like that, it is to hopefully train the public so that they'll be a lot more cautious.
That's right.
They'll proceed with safety. So I just don't want the public to think that, they can violate all the rules and traffic laws and safety zones as long as we get some revenue. No, I would rather get zero revenue and have kids not run over and have school zones and traffic lights and those rules be obeyed. I just want to make that.
Thank you for clarifying that. I 100%.
No, you're very welcome, and thank you.
Yeah, and Councilmember Giroux, before we get into the brief on revenue, could we talk about, it's two items, 6 and 7 for Sophie Gumbo?
Yeah,
got property management and public works here to talk about those.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, on number 6, for Sophie Gumble, really my concern is we've had 2 public meetings at this point. Like, the expectation was that an RFP would go out soonish after our last September meeting. I know there's been review and re-review and going to this department, but again, this is one of those where I feel like we ought to collectively, we've worked so hard on this, Joe, that we ought to all collectively just be in a position to get this done and moving. And again, my hope is maybe not groundbreaking, but certainly ribbon cutting.
I agree with you, and I've got Trey Nobles, my director of property management, here to give you an update.
Great.
Oh, I'm going to go ahead and let James from purchasing sort of lay out where the timeline
Okay.
is.
Yes,
Great.
thank you.
Hey,
Good
Mr.
afternoon, James Simmons, Chief Procurement Officer. Yes, we actually been having our pre-meetings regarding Sophie Gamble. We've had some going back and forth regarding the RFP. Of course, we know that this is the first time we've had this type of RFP, but I think we've got some things that the concerns nailed out. So actually, the solicitation release went out today. So it did go out today, and the ad day started today as well. And the last ad is going to be on the 28th of this month. The pre-submittal conference starts on the 27th. Of course, we know through pre-submittal, we're going to determine if there's any slips in the scope, specification changes and adjustments, things of that nature. And the deadline for public questions is going to be September 2nd. And the deadline for proposal submissions is going to be September 16th. We're not expecting any changes in that deadline, but the only thing that would change that deadline would be the number of submissions, the number of responses.
Right, if we get 0, we have a problem. But if you
Zero,
get, my hope is you have about 6 to 10, and we have a good,
Right.
we have a good problem. Well, I really appreciate that. By the way, members, for you who don't know too, I was told yesterday that procurement is now attaching, at Ms. Simmons' request, a deadline sheet. This is when we got it. This is what the expected deadline is. This is how it ought to be moving. And I just want to commend the administration and you in particular for doing that because, often, and Ms. Turner, oh, it's law's fault. Oh, it's procurement's fault. And that's not the case. And so the fact that you're keeping receipts and making sure that you're doing that is extraordinarily commendable, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Trey, too, for your work on this.
Not a problem.
All right, great. I'm excited. Let me just ask, are we officially now in the cone of silence on this?
Yes.
Yes, we
Yeah,
are.
all right, good, because I can tell people don't talk to me about it. I love that. All right, thank you, everybody. All
I
right,
do still have to maintain grass and things like that.
yeah,
so you can still send me those.
you're never free of that, Trey. That will be to my dying breath. All right, can we do very quickly? Yes.
I
Yeah,
just
Ms.
needed, Councilmember.
Yeah.
Council President Morrell, I just needed to correct something. The overall finance budget is 41 million. The director's budget is 13. We charged $6 million in collection fees to OPSB on the 41 million. I just wanted to correct that.
No, I appreciate that. If you could give me a breakdown of how that $6 million was collected and what services were provided for $6 million, that'd be, I think, greatly appreciated because, like I said, if you could give a breakdown as to how we spent $6 million to collect the school board's money, that would be a superior legal argument to what was made in court. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Mr. Hathaway, I know Milne work is being done. I've seen that. My concern right now is Harrison, where, again, not your fault. Brick was put down. It's being ripped up, but that money was allocated. So I just want to know when the work is going to start. That's all.
That work will be done as part of DPW's 2025 right-of-way improvements contract. That contractor is currently working on Canal Street right now, and Harrison Avenue is task order number 2.
Okay, but is that September 2nd? Is it November 2nd? I mean, Rick, this is just a question, and I'm going to cut to the chase. We allocated the $500,000 specifically for this in the budget on December 1. I'm 9 months out and there's no shovels in the ground and it's $500,000. This isn't, 30 blocks and $20 million. So I'm asking, when will it start?
In November and December of 2024, we did not have a right-of-way contract in force. We just recently got that. The contract was executed towards the end of June, early July, and that's when the contractor started on Canal Street. We're doing Canal Street first because we need to use the ARPA money in order to stripe it, and that money is about to expire. That's the reason for Canal going first, and then we'll do Harrison. I can't give you an exact date because obviously weather affects construction, but I will say it's about 3 or 4 more weeks on Canal Street and then move over to Harrison.
Again, for all of us going forward, it's disappointing because it's a specific allocation. It was made in December, and it's basically going to be a full year before it gets done. And I mean, this is just, I'm trying to get off my horse, but this is what residents get frustrated about, is we go and we say, we fought for you, we worked together, we have the money. I understand when we don't have the resources. I'll be the first to say I'm not going to try and pillory anybody. But when the money's there, and it almost takes a year to get the thing done, it just makes it hard to keep the spirits uplifted. So, all right, I mean, my hope is 3 to 4 weeks is 3 to 4 weeks, and that means October 1 is a start date on Harrison. I would ask that it be that priority.
Yeah, and I think Councilmember Jeruso related to that just today at 11 o'clock, we had all the construction companies, all the owners of construction companies and all the PMs, construction management folks met over at 1515, and the meeting was coined contractor expectation. So a lot of things are in Rick's basket in the public works, but once we NTP and turn it over to the contractor, we have issues. I mean, you know, we have issues. So I'm hoping that moving forward from today, that those contractor responsibles stay on their timelines and the work is done quicker with a higher level of quality.
I get it, but let me just again say this: like we're gonna go push for the bond sale. I think we all voted for it. The administration's behind it. Rick, there's money in there for bridges and streets and all sorts of things that you desperately need. It makes it hard for me to stand up in my neighborhood and say, you should support this, and then they go, well, where's the money you told us that was happening for the thing that's right here? Well, that's delayed. So I'm just, help me help you. That's all that I'm asking for, all right? And I know, Rick, like, Harrison is one small part of your whole portfolio, and you got a million other things to do, but all I'm asking for is how we can do it so we can best utilize what we want to do in the future and make sure it works well for everybody.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, and then, Joe, to your point, we're deferred on item number 5 per Councilmember Morell's request, so we'll go to F, which is the revenue generation. Yeah, Frida.
Just wanted to update you all before you get started on that.
Thank you.
The Wisner Fund is Fund 5117, and the fund balance is 1.6 million.
1.6 million. All right, thank you.
Realize the cash that we did receive, there were obligations that were already paid earlier this year, so that reduced the cash that we received. We had to replenish general fund for paying those expenses earlier this year. And I can send y'all the breakout for that.
Yeah, please send it to us, because I know the council is supposed to approve those things, so I want to make sure we understand.
We'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, we'll start the revenue enhancement briefing. Jonathan Harris, the Chief of Staff, will run the show.
All right, well, I will just start off similar to the way that Councilmember Giarrusso started off earlier, which is to say that we have come before you several times this year already, kind of starting to talk through some budget issues that we have, some revenue challenges that we're seeing in 2025, as well as revenue challenges that we saw in 2024. And at this point, just in the monthly reports that we give to the Budget Committee, you'll see an anticipated personnel budget deficit of around 70 million. So we have several challenges that we need to address collectively, and this is just one portion of the plan that we're trying to execute to hopefully fix some of the issues. So moving through, I've already given a little bit of background, but you can see that over time we have experienced quite a bit of political uncertainty coming from the state. Part of these traffic camera discussions that we've talked about. We've seen some challenges. We've also seen some tax collection challenges imposed by the state, and that kind of provides a little background in terms of why some changes in tactics are needed. Some strategies need to be employed so that we can get back on track going into 2026 budget development season.
Don't want to interrupt you, but for laymen out there, people who are listening, when you say tax collection problems, people would think that there's a standard way of collecting taxes. So if there's some things that are impositions right now or problems, what are they and why are they different than they should be?
Well, I think what I was referring to specifically, and I'm sorry for using just kind of general terminology.
No, this is just for people who are watching.
Yeah, so specifically in the latest REC presentation, which is Revenue Estimating Conference, where we kind of go through how revenue, numbers are looking throughout the year. We even forecast, an official forecast for the next year. We received a presentation from the city economist at the last REC meeting. And one of the major changes that the city economist highlighted was two state pieces of legislation that in total impacted the city's sales tax, ability to collect a particular kind of sales tax based on exemptions in the amount of 16.3 million for an entire year. So my general, comment was, backed up by the specific information from the city economist that just points out, we may start a year looking one way because of existing law, and then midway through the year, state legislation can be passed and become active.
And so these two pieces of state legislation could, at the end of the day, cost us $16.3 million.
On an annual basis.
On an annual basis?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And do you have those pieces of legislation?
HB 578, I believe. HB House Bill 578. I think this is during the 2025 fiscal session. HB 578 was for the exemption of local sales tax on 3 different items that impacted us. And then House Bill HB 490. And that was a public contracts exemption, and that effect was 9.8 million.
That's for public contracts.
Yes, sir. And I don't have any further details.
I think
Maybe
it's
Matthew's here.
sales tax on materials.
On material?
Right.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
So some of this, conversation, again, we are here presenting to the budget committee, but obviously there are other revenue-based conversations that happen, and the REC is one of the other venues in which a lot of these conversations happen. So if there are any things that I'm kind of glossing over, I apologize, because
that's fine.
Many times.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but.
No, that's fine.
When you say there are challenges, now, I think for people who are watching, this may be our only chance to explain to them what that challenge is.
So, as we have, come across these challenges that we're experiencing in 2025, especially the CAO's office has worked with various departments, including the Department of Finance, to work through some, potential solutions. We've imposed a hiring freeze that also has an exemption, process that departments can use. We have, worked to define overtime and hopefully, bend the curve, so to speak, on overtime, which contributes to the personnel deficit that we're seeing. We have also imposed more scrutiny on certain approval processes for contracts and requisitions and purchase orders going through brass. And then, finally, you, at the beginning of this meeting, the Budget Committee considered a resolution to approve the sale of judgment bonds, revenue bonds, in the amount of 45 million. I would characterize that as a potential alternative funding source for some of the expenditures that we have on an annual basis. So you may see some things where we're proposing an alternative funding source that's perhaps more appropriate for a particular type of expenditure, such as a judgment against the city. For instance, we have an annual $2 million appropriation in the judgment fund for the payment of judgments that are owed to the city. And one of the reasons that we went out for, or are about to go out for, revenue bonds is because we can have an infusion of cash on the front end now and pay down the unpaid judgment list much quicker. So what I would recommend there, just for characterization purposes, is that we have general fund dollars that are basically can be used for any type of city expenditure. And then we have some more restricted types of funding, such as like bond funding. It can only be used for certain capital expenses, and then, revenue bonds for judgments can only be used for judgments and settlements. So, it's a fairly typical financial strategy to try to use more restricted funds for those compliant purposes and try to save the general fund dollars, for the more general purposes. So as part of our cost reduction strategy, we're also clearly here to talk about revenue generating strategies. So, you know, we're seeking to bend the curve on both sides. I will say here that I'm going to turn over the presentation to, I think, Austin next to talk about the more specifics. But the basic idea is that in 2025, we need to make some changes. And I think that'll both help the 2025 budget and going into the 2026 budget. You know, we're not going to have the same kind of fund balance cushion that we've had the past 3 or 4 years because of the influx of federal cash. So now it's just, the budget's going to be tighter. We're going to have to make some hard decisions. That's why we're here.
You know, I think before Romy takes it over, Councilmember Thomas, Councilmember Green, I mean, when you always ask the question, how do we get here? And I mean, when you think about the terrorist event, snowstorm, Super Bowl, Mardi Gras, and you just look at, when you just talk about overtime, an amount of overtime we put into the beginning of the year till now unreimbursed, you know, was one of the main burdens on our revenues.
So then the question is, did that impact the general fund or did it impact the fund balance?
I think both.
And,
Yeah.
okay,
Yes,
so both took a hit.
yeah,
We used some funds from the fund balance.
absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and then from experience, I mean,
You know, because, you know, when you talk in accounting, the fund balance is usually set aside for emergency cases like we're highlighting, for bond rating, city's financial health. So I just want the public to know that there's a general fund and the fund balance, that's your rainy day.
right, and I think, you know, just hindsight and looking forward, you know, from my position, we've got to really look at those Tier 1 events, those major events that are national events governed by the Department of Homeland Security. When they mandate security platforms or footprints within the area of the event, like Super Bowl, Mardi Gras was a Tier 1, the terrorist event was a Tier 1, on how we get reimbursed or how we talk about what the cost is before folks come in town. And that was one of the issues.
Okay.
Austin, you ready for traffic?
Thanks. So we touched on this a little bit earlier with automated traffic cameras, but currently there is an amnesty program that's going on through August 31st where people who have been ticketed, either automated traffic cameras or parking tickets, can enroll by going to NOLA.gov/no late fees. Again, NOLA.gov/no late fees. And so the program launched in June 1st, 2025. You see the collection to date. Again, the program ends on August 31st and is expected to net $452,000. So Promise Pay, our contractor for the program, has been pursuing a variety of outreach from press releases to SMS campaigns, media coverage, radio ads. You know, just sitting here today, I think there's probably an opportunity to partner with the council and y'all's media channels as well. We'd love to get the word out. Because what would be coming next would be that we would look to send parking tickets where people did not enter into a program to the Office of Debt Recovery. So we've been talking to the Office of Debt Recovery for quite some time on this. And in order to do that, it would require us to send a 60-day and a 30-day notice, and ODR would then send a 15-day notice. And so we're in talks with ODR right now. And, you know, based on a conservative estimate of 25% collection rate, we believe that the recoveries could total as much as $13.6 million. And it's worth noting, again, going back to the state legislation, that Act 107, which passed during the 2025 fiscal session, prevents us from sending automated traffic camera debt to the Office of Debt Recovery. And so, you know, that's a large chunk of, or a large portion of what we have outstanding. And so that's, you know, certainly disappointing on that end. But we're, you know, evaluating our options on how we increase collections, and we'll move forward with those mailings probably in short order. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, yep, perfect. Okay, so, sorry. Permit fee schedule update. So basically what we're looking to do is adjust for inflation here. So paired with, targeted fee updates to better align the cost with the services and streamline processes. So I have the Director of Safety and Permits as well as the Chief Zoning Official here when we get to the next couple of slides if y'all have specific questions on those. But since 2014, inflation has increased by 35%, but fees have stayed flat. And so this gap means the city is not recovering the full cost of providing permitting services, And so we're looking to update the fee schedule to ensure fair cost recovery and sustainable operations. So those proposed changes are expected to defray up to $1.5 million in operating costs.
Yeah, but do you think if we could get permits out quicker, that would encourage more volume?
Absolutely.
So, it could be 6 one way, half a dozen the other. If we're creating an atmosphere where business can be done quicker, then folk will look to invest at a higher level. So while you're looking at the budget side of it, have you scaled it to the point where you could say, okay, we're averaging, especially based on a standard operating procedure or municipal standards, we're averaging this many permits, but if we could double that or add a quarter to it, we would do this. Have we done that study?
That Director Jackson, I see, is behind me. That's a perfect segue into the next slide about plan review. But Director Jackson, do you want to?
Right, I wanted to say, and this adjustment also anticipate reducing.
Why don't you tell the public who you are, please?
Tammy Jackson, Director of Safety and Permits.
Yeah.
In reviewing permit fees, we also looked into defraying the cost of. One of my permit analysts was saying that we're spending like 80% of our time on 20% of the permits that come in with no documentation. And so one of the items in here is to also put some skin in the game before you submit an application so that we're not going over those applications and the other people that are ready have actually prepared and sent the required documents. We can easily get to them faster. So that's one of the ways we're saying if we can reduce the number of just dormant applications that are submitted with no intention of moving forward, so we don't have that, spend that time reviewing things that don't have the proper submission, haven't submitted the required documents, then we can focus on the ones that are prepared to move forward and get to those faster and review those faster.
Then how long does it take you to determine if a permit is dormant or if the applicant has no intention to move forward? What's the average there? What do you guys look for?
I mean, to be honest, we're thinking 2 weeks, or a week, and you have to get the document back to us within the week, or we're gonna close it and you have to reapply. That's the standard we wanna move forward with. So there's a denial and the documents that you need. We already have a website that has required documents, but a lot of applications come in with no documents submitted at all. And so when no documents are submitted at all, we're spending time telling this person what they need to submit when the person that has submitted everything is still waiting in a queue.
So a question, and I've asked this before, I don't know if publicly. So we have people who do business periodically. They have folk who do permitting, the contracting, opening businesses that have a history of dealing with the municipality. So let's say the people who have a history of making sure that they check all the boxes, that all of their applications, all of their paperwork is submitted. So they're in that group that you can count on them doing it the right way. So what prohibits us then from, especially if you have a good actor or someone who's always done it the right way, to immediately issuing their permit so they can have a provisional permit so they can start doing business and remitting taxes and we can collect some money because we know 99.9% of the time, every time that person has applied for a permit, they've done it the right way and they've submitted all the paperwork.
I don't know if I have that person, but we do have people that do it better than others. But we do process in the order of receipt. I think that's the most fairest way we can do it, and that's why we want to cut down on the number of frivolous applications that we receive instead of focusing on a name we may know. We want everything to be fair.
Yeah, but just based on what I'm hearing here, I think there are three categories. There are people who apply for permits, and there are people who you don't know what's going to happen. There's question marks in terms of the process. There's another group who applies for permits, and we know a few weeks or a few months later, they never come back to finish that application or submitting the requirements. And then there's a group of people who historically apply for permits, who are consistently doing business, who usually wind up with their permit. So why should one size fit all?
It's not one size fit all. It
That's
is
just a question.
it is just simply fairness.
But why you
Review
should,
and the order of receipt, and then, like I said, and we still have those people in the queue, and we're looking at those as well.
Okay.
I mean, when we see applications, permit and list, the plan review and zoning, yes, we do identify those people that historically can actually operate and know exactly what to submit, and they use those. So the priority is different. It's not one size fit all, but that's the standard.
all right, I don't want to belabor this, but I think given what I'm hearing, there needs to be a couple of categories so that people who apply for permits can be treated differently, and that they're not all in the same pile, waiting, going through the same process. And I understand if there's policy that you have to follow, if there's rules and regulations, but I think at some point, we've just identified what the problem could be, and we need to break this down because some folk may be more ready to start than others, and then there's this other group that we're wasting time on that have a history of never completing their application.
And if
Right,
I
and we
may-
triage. We definitely
Okay,
triage.
thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
And I think those are great suggestions. I think we have looked at ideas such as express lanes, you know, or multiple, you know, permits that go multiple years, you know, for not having to reapply for a couple of years. Those are certainly ideas we've explored.
I like express lane, but, because one stop historically has meant stop, right? And I don't want express lane to be you get in the express lane and get run over.
Sure.
So let's try to find some meaning in these. Thank you.
Fair enough, yeah. And I think all this, you know, Director Jackson touched on the base application fee, so I'll kind of fast forward to that one. You know, I think that would also help us inform our data so that we can show that safety and permits, you know, within 7 days is making contact with the applicant, and it wouldn't skew the numbers. So I think those are all good suggestions. Moving forward, we have the zoning review fee here, a technology fee as well, construction permit fees and base fees, subject to your questions. The next slide explains what the fiscal impact would be on these. So these slides go hand in hand. One correction I will make is that the last line, that ordinance to amend would be Chapter 2 and I believe Chapter 70, if I'm not mistaken. So that is a typo, but you know, for the first one, for the plan review, that ordinance already passed, and so that's just something we need to implement and adjust our business process. But you can see here the different actions needed, and of course, there's notes to the side. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. Sure. So similarly, with City Planning Commission, as you know, about a year ago, an ordinance passed to increase the BZA fees. Similarly, Director Rivers is working with the law department, and we'll be working with the IGR to move forward an ordinance to adjust CPC fees. And so they've submitted that proposal, given that these fees were last updated in 2009. This is simply accounting for inflation by increasing the zoning, design review, and subdivision applications, again, using a calculator published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This increase is expected to result in an additional $161,110 annually, assuming the volume of applications submitted to the city remains constant following the increase. And again, we already touched on the ordinance that would be required.
Next, I think we'll turn it over to the Director of Finance to discuss some additional revenue-generating strategies beyond fees.
Council members, as you know, this conversation began last year with the increase in expenditures. What we knew at the time to be decreases in revenue that has also materialized this year. We did warn of that last year during several meetings, but to effectively address the city's estimated $70 million deficit or revenue shortfall, several actionable measures have emerged from ongoing discussions with the mayor, the Department of Finance, and members of the administration. These proposals aim to leverage existing legal authority and implement targeted adjustments to taxes, fees, and permits. The following summary outlines key opportunities for revenue generation that can be pursued immediately or with minimal legislative support. Sales tax adjustments. Under the existing statutes and based on a previously obtained legal opinion, the City Council has the authority to increase the general sales tax rate from 2.5% to 3% without requiring an election. The estimated revenue for this change could yield $35 million. This is excluding hotel, motel taxes, sales taxes, and short-term rental transactions. Hotel, motel, and short-term rental transactions, or STRs. If we targeted an increase in sales tax for hotels and STR transactions, this could generate an additional $5 million if we raise the sales tax from 2.5% to 3%. Another consideration is property tax roll forward. The current authorized millage for general municipal or city alimony is 12.23 mills. This could be rolled forward to the maximum allowable rate of 13.910 mills. If we rolled forward to the maximum, the yield could yield the city $25 million in additional property tax. If a sanitation fee is considered, we could propose an increase of 30 to 50% increase in sanitation fees, which could yield between $45 to $60 million. Additional permits and licenses, other than those discussed earlier, the occupational license, which is the business license that they receive annually, the current minimum is $50 per year. If the proposal to increase the minimum to $100 per year, it could generate an additional $800,000. There are statutory limits that apply, but legislative action could allow for local flexibility. The alcoholic beverage outlet processing fees, which were rescinded last year or year before, which netted the city about $1 million to the general fund. The recommendation is to reinstate the $1,000 processing fee for new applications and introduce a $500 renewal fee annually. The estimated revenue is $900,000 to $1 million. The justification is there is currently an ordinance that requires recertification on renewals each year, which includes zoning review.
Well, when you say reinstate the processing fee, but not at 1,000, reinstate it at 500?
On new.
On new.
1,000 on new applications, 500 on renewals.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So there are also permit fees, to Mr. Wiltie's point, that have not been raised for a number of years. The high content alcohol permit fee is $500 per year. The proposed increase could be $750 to $1,000 per year, with an estimated yield of $300,000 to $600,000. The low-content alcohol permit, which is the beer permit, is only $135 per year. The proposed increase could be to $250 up to $500 per year, which would yield additional revenue of $130,000 to $430,000 annually. Now, there are statutory limitations that exist, as mentioned, on occupational licenses and permit fees, alcohol permit fees at the state level. Pursuing these legislative changes, such as adding a local option to increase the fees, would be worthwhile. Any questions?
Yes, there's another potential revenue generating action, and that's to ask the state of Louisiana, which puts so many restrictions on our ability to do business in our own city of New Orleans, to loosen up and out of that $51 billion budget, make money available to the city that Governor Landry says he wants to stand out, to be like other cities, to be like Charlotte, to be like Orlando, to be like everybody else. But you know, as I look at their structures, their states do not put such limitations on their ability to do business in their city. So that is something that a new administration or even the present administration can pursue, and pursue with enthusiasm, because as we analyze and look at other cities, one of the biggest impediments to generating revenue in the city of New Orleans is the state of Louisiana. The state owns the Superdome, the state owns the convention center, the state owns everything along the waterways, everything along the waterways. The state owns City Park. At the end of the day, the answer is clear as to where there's additional revenues. It's a matter of how we get it. Just food for thought. It's not on here. Ask the state of Louisiana to, within its $51 billion budget, support the city that is the top revenue-generating city in the state.
Yeah, and I think Councilmember, Romy's got, the finance pieces, but I've asked Trey Nobles, over my Director of Property Management, to do an inventory of properties. We've got a lot of properties. When we did a building use study on the VA hospital, that's 1 million square foot. We're looking at NSA. We've got a lot of city properties and lots, adjudications that we need to take an inventory real quick. It might not happen soon, maybe in the next administration, to start looking at properties to, dissolve some of the property inventory we have to bring in additional revenues. That's another piece of it.
I want to just first thank everybody for putting this together. I think it's the beginning of a good conversation that needs to be had. What about parking? Like, I parked on Poydras yesterday in my personal car last week, and it was like $3 for an hour. When's the last time parking has been raised in the city?
Well, I know it's, I've had the discussions with Rick and, talking about parking enforcement, towing, booting.
Right.
Are other areas that we're looking at right now, Councilmember Giroux? I know that in our discussions and the movement of parking enforcement, towing to NOPD, that's in discussion right now. So we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, I guess just my point though is, like, to Ms. Samuel's point, like, I would pay, first of all, I think parking tends to affect either people who aren't residents or don't have a place downtown for the most part, or other parts of the city. So you're not affecting usually the residents most impacted. I think that's important. But then secondly, I'm just looking at the table. If like an hour on Poydras is $3.25, and we raised it to $6 for an hour, which is not an unreasonable amount of money, what would that look like from a revenue perspective on parking? Because again, I think the thing we're all trying to be sensitive to is, for the people who live here, how do we balance services delivered versus you need to have appropriate resources, and parking feels like one of those things that isn't so bad unless you have a stated purpose or a business for being here.
Right, and that's some other conversations. I know, just visiting around the nation, when you go to Des Moines, Iowa, It's the availability of parking. We don't have enough meters. And I went to Des Moines, Iowa, and they had parking tower, parking garage, parking meters inside the garage. They allowed free parking, and in Washington DC, after hours, after 5, so people can shop and have dinner.
Sure.
And enforce the parking during the day. But these are city-owned parking garages. And all the meters in there are city-owned revenue. And there's many cities that do that. And like I talked before about the lots and available lots that we have, it might be worth the discussion to invest in some of these city-owned parking garages instead of, selling property off to private entities.
I think we're all about making revenue, and it doesn't also, Joe, it doesn't require a lot of O&M, right? I mean, that'd be the other piece of all of this is.
And it's all electronic.
Yeah.
And you can use credit cards and
Yeah,
just like
absolutely.
everywhere else.
The other little question I have to wrap this part up is for the proposed other permits and fees that both Austin and Samuel went through, how do those compare to what other parishes are doing in the area? Like, in other words, what I don't want to do is have this conversation and then have people say, well, Jefferson Parish only charges $30 and you guys are charging $700. So, I mean, it'd be nice to have some apples to apples comparison too. And I'm not expecting it right now, but that way, if we're below where they are, then, hey guys, you've been getting a free ride in Orleans for a long time.
The IGR team had put some things together because we were trying to propose this during the fiscal session. So we do have some information that we could probably share with you.
Great.
From that team on some of these things.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Unless anybody has any questions, I want to get to the expense side stuff kind of quickly. And that's usually Mr. Cooper and Brandy's bailiwick. So thank you all for being here. I know it's been kind of a longer meeting, but an important one, I think. And I just kind of, unless members, want to belabor anything, I think the most important things for us to look at are obviously where we are on the revenue generation side, kind of the first couple slides you show, Mr. Cooper, and then kind of potentially expense side, particularly some of the overtime. Councilmember Green.
I actually just wanted to thank the analysis that was presented relative to additional revenues. I also want to say it's good news that the city of New Orleans has maintained its bond rating. I noticed that one of our neighboring parishes lost its bond rating. Thank goodness that wasn't New Orleans, because it would be a daily story as to what we were doing that was irresponsible. So I just want to say that in terms of at least looking at additional revenues and looking at expenditures, we're letting the bond rating companies know that we're concerned. Thank you.
Yeah, and Councilmember Jeruso, I'll work with your staff to set up some time for us to get together.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you all very much. Thank you. All right, Mr. Cooper, you don't mind coming down? We'll just round this out in the next few minutes. Thank you for your patience. All right, whenever y'all are ready.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Again, Matthew Cooper, Chief Economist. Just looking at the revenue report for the end of June. Does anybody have any questions about the numbers presented here?
I mean, I guess my main question is, right now, sales tax collection is only $4 million higher than it was last year. And it would just seem with Sugar Bowl, with Super Bowl, with other things, that number would be a little bit higher. Do we only expect a 1% increase over everything we've had at this point in the year?
Yeah, so one of the numbers I've been presenting is the windfall of these special events, and what that actually nets to the city. So right now, just looking at the Super Bowl, I mean, Sugar Bowl happens every year, so that's already,
Sure.
that's not necessarily a special event, it's a recurring event. As far as the Super Bowl is concerned, we're looking at between $8 and $10 million so far that we can attribute to that special event, hosting that. The other major trend that you're looking at with sales tax is general long-term decline in the amount of revenue actually collected. That's a result of many different factors, mostly to do with declining population, declining commerce, declining spending power, i.e. inflation, visitor spending, things like that. So that sales tax number is all a function of those things.
Okay, I mean, I maybe we need to discuss more offline. I'm just struggling to understand if, you're right, I grant you the Sugar Bowl is a recurring event, but the Super Bowl is not. And it just seems all these things were on the heels of one another. To have a 1% increase is kind of surprising. And then hotel motel is about 800,000, and we're only 39% of budget, whereas last year we were 44. So, go ahead. Yeah, Ms. Hammer.
The Sugar Bowl, as Mr. Cooper mentioned, is baked in Mardi Gras as well, because Mardi Gras happens every year. But Super Bowl money is continuing to come in. So we are working with the NFL to get additional information, but you'll see the numbers increase because it's still trickling in.
Okay, good. All right, well, that's what I want to know. Thank you. All right, can we go over to personnel service spending projection? And I guess, Randy, like, I know this is the bane of your existence still, but like, you know, we're on a projected path of a $70 million deficit on this. And I know that we moved money over for charity, affordable housing into the bond sale. So that's a $10 million, sort of revenue burst, for lack of a better term, to the overline. But I'm worried that I've said this like 3 months ago, but now that we're in August, like, if we don't bring this number down, then we're going to have a $100 million hole in the budget. Is there anything else? Is there anything here that's wrong? Is there any reimbursement? I guess on police, is there any reimbursement from January 1 that's happening? Is that non-reimbursable?
At this time, there has not been. It's one of the items that Mr. Threat mentioned earlier about the Tier 1 events.
Right.
Pursuing funding for that. So that's still under review. I know NOPD did submit the documentation on expenditures to the state regarding that event. But we have not received any funding for that. The only potential outstanding that I know we have are like grant funding. So with NOPD, they have an overtime grant, but every 3 months is when it gets drawn back in. So that's part of the money, about $9 to $10 million a year. So some of that is not credited yet. So we don't have that yet.
Do we know, or can we find out relatively easily how much NOPD has applied to Tier 1 for? In other words, is it $3 million or is it $25 million?
Oh, yeah, I have a copy of the document. We have it.
Will you mind letting the Budget Committee know?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me do the qualifier. We love our special events. We love the Super Bowl. We want more of them. We're the best special event city in the world. Every survey that the NFL has done, we probably come in first more often than Miami or maybe one or two other places. But the frustration from the public is, you can say we hosted the best Super Bowl ever, had the grandest time, the NFL made the most money, television contracts went through the roof, and it doesn't seem to be a marketable increase in terms of the benefit to the city coffers of the people who live here. And I think that's what we're going to, at some point, when you see the frustration from folk around the country, they want to know how these multi-billion-dollar events benefit them. And at some point, Mr. Chairman, we're going to have those conversations so that people can actually see whether there is a benefit to them. Because of a $1.8 billion budget, an $8 million windfall, I mean, you know, we're trying to calculate how to cover for $70 million. But to say you can have the world's greatest spectacle or the world's greatest event, and that's less than 1%, then I think that's the conversation that's going to have to be had with the NFL and with city officials. Thank you.
I will say I agree. And what I want to point out when we talk about overtime for this year is we did know that there would be some red for the overtime, especially for public safety, as we noted last year during the budget hearings. The difference this year is that price tag did exacerbate itself, mainly because of what happened on January 1. So those events subsequently following, Sugar Bowl increased our costs, even Mardi Gras, those costs, even our outside costs that we had to pay to Jefferson Parish to assist on those events and to pay to the sheriff to bring it outside. Those increased specifically for that event. And again, those are linked to the SEER 1, which are all in part of the portfolio that Mr. Joe is investigating, trying to see how much we'll be able to get back for that.
Yeah, and I understand that, but specifically to the event, the chairman was kind of amazed that that's all that it yielded. And of course, Romy said, the finance director said at some point more will come in. But it takes me back to a conversation in the governor's mansion a couple of decades ago with former Mayor Mark Morial and members of the city council over casino support services, where the Morial administration, Mr. Chairman, had done a study that showed that the minimum the city would put in annually to support the casino was anywhere between $18 to $23 million. But what the state thought was fair was that they get $100+ million off the top, and the city fight for $3.7 million in terms of reimbursement. Well, if I'm supporting you getting $100 million off the top, and I'm telling you that with all of my services and infrastructure, I'm averaging between $18 and $20 million a year, how is that a good deal for me? And of course, we were thrown out of the governor's mansion. Y'all can go to some WWL Reel to see it, because Mayor Morial was like, you got to be crazy. I'm supporting you getting $100 million plus off the top, and you're telling me just take whatever you want to give me. And I think those are the kind of conversations that has to happen with the state, especially now, given the fact that the state is being extremely aggressive in terms of adding more cost on us, in many cases threatening takeovers for us, but we're losing out in the revenue battle. Just a little commentary, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, we're going to have to put it all together. You know, I think we're going to have to talk about how we handle this kind of sooner rather than later. Because I guess my biggest concern, again, is whoever the next administration is, next council is, I don't want them coming in and saying the cupboard's bare and everybody before us is to blame. And that just doesn't help anybody. So I think we're going to have to start thinking about revenue side and expense side pretty soon. And I think probably there's some things that can be done earlier rather than later, and then there's going to have to be some things after elections are over and people have some marching orders to decide what they want to do. But I think we need to plan about it that way. All right. Anybody else on the dais? Y'all want to stay a little bit longer? That's a no. Councilmember Green moves to adjourn, seconded by Councilmember Thomas. 3 yeas, no nays, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a good day.